the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week. And welcome back, folks. Welcome back to Business Story of the Week. I am your host, Joshua, and today's question is, how can starting your company at age 18 turn into one of the most biggest innovators in your niche and your industry? Well, our guest today, Jill, just might have the answer for that. Jill L. Ferguson, our guest for today, is an award-winning writer and author of more than 18 books. She was first published at age 12 and started her first company, at age 18, ultimately becoming fully self employed in 2012. Her book, Creating a Freelance Career, is a comprehensive guide for aspiring freelancers. She coaches entrepreneurs and business owners on ways to grow themselves and their companies. In 2024, Jill was named one of Maxim Magazine's top innovators and disruptors. Jill is also the founder of Women's Wellness Weekends, and today she continues to inspire through her work and her commitment to helping others succeed. And she will share those same insights and inspirations. Jill, thank you for coming on to the show. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for having me on your show.
Jill, I'm quite excited, and again, it's quite the pleasure to have always have guests here with such insight, with such experience. I mean, 18 books and starting your first company at 18 years old as well, being first published at 12 years old, such extensive experience. I want to start getting into that, but before I do, I always start with a question. The question is, did you always know you were going to be an author? Like when you were
Yes.
childhood experience? Yes, that's quick. What,
Yes.
what a quick answer. What a quick
Yes.
answer.
When,
So
when I
I
was
go ahead, please.
when I was 5, I
Mhm.
actually sat down at a little red desk in my parents' basement and wrote my first kids book.
Wow.
And then I decided to illustrate it myself. And being a
Wow.
5-year-old, you don't know that much about ratios of water to pigments when it comes to
Mhm,
paint.
mhm.
So I ended up creating a big soupy mess of a book because I had used too much water in the watercolors.
Oh, that's so funny.
And then I got very frustrated and rolled it into a ball and threw it in the garbage. But but I did write my first book. It was about a cat at age
That
5. So
is adorable. First of all, that's very adorable. That's quite the story to tell. And that you still remember your first book at age 5 about a cat, and you did your own cover. It shows, having that memory shows how much you love writing. Having that
yes.
memory, have shows us in it your passion when it comes to it. I mean, you're quite passionate about it because you published 18 books, right? So you really do love, and you've always known you were going to be a writer. But talk to us a little bit more about your early days or any pivotal experiences in your life where you started thinking that, okay, I think business consulting is my path, right? And freelancing is my path. So talk to us a little bit about, give us a little bit of chronology, especially starting your first company at 18. What happened there?
So I actually started doing kind of entrepreneurial things before I was 18. Like I
Hmm.
remember when I was maybe 11 or 12, there was a gift card company where you could sell wrapping paper and greeting cards and small gifty kinds of things. And I remember taking the catalog door to door in our neighborhood and selling things to neighbors. And then you had to wait the few weeks for the shipment to come because this was back in the early 80s. um,
Wow.
and
Wow.
then passing them out and getting maybe $20 or $30 of my own out of whatever I sold for this company. And in this case, it was not a school related project. Like sometimes schools have kids sell M&Ms and various things,
Hmm,
but I
hmm.
remember doing that just because I wanted my own money. And I started babysitting when I was 10 for neighbor
Wow.
kids.
Wow.
And finally, when I was able to get my first like part-time job at the mall when I was
Mm-hmm.
16 and had a car and I could drive myself.
Mm-hmm.
I did that. And
Wow.
so I've always been looking for ways to connect with people, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is really important,
Mm-hmm.
and to interact with people, and then to kind of further my own business interests,
Of course, of
and
course.
do things that are really creative too,
Wow.
because I believe that creativity is a very important part of our human experience.
That is true, and creativity is, I always say, is like kind of like you need to fill that passion of yours. You need to fill up your soul, not just your
Mm-hmm.
the business side. Of course, feel like everyone needs a career, but also everyone needs a creative side of theirs. And Jill, that's why I love that question. I love asking these stories. And first of all, before I proceed, I wanted to say that how adorable you are. It feels like your energy from way back then, of you going out there and having this kind of always this entrepreneurial spirit. I can just imagine you, like uh, young and just hustling hard, and it feels like you still have that spirit, and it exudes. I can feel it from here, and I can feel it the way you talk about it. And I think it just feels like, again, you have these both sides of being a creative, with all your writing and you're being an author, but you also have this business side of yours that you've always had, this
Yeah.
entrepreneurial fire that you've always had. But also, you said that connecting is important, because I love
Yeah.
one of the things that you left us. One of the notes that you said was, every person you meet has a potential to change your life. There are
Mm-hmm.
lessons in every interaction and every experience. I love that, Jill. Thank you for leaving us with that. What were some of those moments where you can say that, oh, I met this particular person that led you into business consulting? Was there a particular mentor? Was there a particular event that you went to where you realized that this is it, this is the path I'm going to undertake? And what inspired you to write creating a freelance career book?
So I have been working with other people's and their businesses since
Okay.
I was in my 20s,
Mm-hmm.
doing consulting. And in my 20s and early 30s into my early 40s, I also was a professor and an academic administrator.
Yes,
And I
yes.
worked with a lot of students, helping them set up businesses or nonprofits.
Wow.
I had one student that was coming to me for real estate investment advice, and he was
Wow.
coming into my office almost weekly
Wow.
because that was the career path he wanted to take. And he
Mm-hmm.
was actually in school studying to be a musician,
Oh,
but
wow.
he decided he thought there was more money in real estate and more passion than being a classical musician.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been mentoring people, and I've taught writing classes at like parks and recreation places and in communities. And those people that I was teaching in those classes, and there were hundreds of them, kept coming to me after the classes were over for advice on publishing and the publishing industry. And so I started doing all of this consulting and this mentoring,
Wow.
without even like saying, hey, I'm going to do this for a living. It just kind of
Wow.
all flowed, right?
Interesting.
And
Wow.
and some of that, out of some of that, I have ended up with people who have asked me to co-author books with them.
Okay.
And it's people that, like, I wrote a book that the university or Melbourne University Press put out, called The
Wow.
Advocates. And I wrote it with Robin Gulliver, who lives in Australia, who's from New Zealand. And she and I wrote this book during COVID, and we've never met in person. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
and we wrote this really amazing book. And
Wow.
so that's why I think that's like every person you meet has the opportunity to influence your life in some way, to become a potential
Beautiful.
collaborator, to become a teacher or a student for you, because we're all always teachers and students around everybody.
That
Yeah.
is true. Very interesting. And these interactions include online. This, like
Yeah.
it could be virtual. It's right here. It's an experience and a lesson that we can learn in everything. I love that, Jill, because it resonates with me, because I try to make these episodes meaningful, not just, not just for, of course, our audience and listeners as well, but making sure that I, somehow create or develop a genuine connection with the guest, because you took your time out to come see us, to come join us in this episode. So I want that time to be meaningful. That's why I love what you said, that every person has a potential to change their life. Speaking of co-authoring books as well, you are the co-author of a best-selling book, a salary
It's
Cinderella story. I love the title.
yeah.
I
It's on
almost
the wall behind me, the cover of it,
there you go.
actually.
It's right there. Exactly. A
Yeah.
salary Cinderella
Salary
story. I
Cinderella
got it
story.
right the
Yeah.
first time. Or how to make money without a fairy godmother. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Talk to us a little bit about that, but also before we really start getting into the business side of things, you co-authored this book, which is another freelance or business type book, but
Mhm.
you also have a mystery book coming out. You told me earlier.
Yes.
So talk to us about that. We're doing these two sides of you again.
Okay.
Talk to us about the business side book and this new
Okay.
mystery book that's coming out.
A Salary Cinderella story. Lara Brown and I wrote this book, and
Mhm.
there's a sequel called A Single Cinderella Story, or How to Find Love Without Losing Yourself.
Wow.
And we wrote these books because we had before this written business books for women. They're mainly geared towards women.
Mhm.
And we decided that the most powerful way to get messages across wasn't just through nonfiction.
Right.
And
Right.
so we decided to take the same lessons that were in some of our nonfiction books and put them in a book that is more like a parable. So it is fiction. It follows three best friends who are in their 20s, and the main character, whose name is Elle, that's the Cinderella. She
Wow.
is a project manager in San Francisco, and she meets, what would be considered a fairy godmother, but it's an empowerer of women on a plane. And
Mhm.
the empowerer of women becomes her mentor, and helps
Wow.
her through her work situations. So we had a lot of fun writing that, and people really liked the book. So then we wrote its sequel about finding love without losing yourself, using the same characters.
That is
And then
interesting.
you
That
had,
is a fun book, by the way. Like just the concept of it
yeah,
you talk about, it sounds so much fun. Like I probably want. I'd grab myself a copy. Like Jill. Yeah,
yeah.
thank you so much about that. Talk to us about the mystery book that's coming out.
Okay, so my brother and I have started writing a mystery series. It's a cozy mystery series involving a woman who owns a dog grooming company, and it's
Okay.
about her and her Australian cattle dog, whose name is Whiskey, and
Okay.
they live in a small town and they help solve crimes. The first book that came out was called Paws and Puzzles, and it's Whiskey Dog Mystery number one. And the second
Mm.
book that's coming out a little later in the summer is called Poodles and Poisons, and it's Whiskey Dog Mystery number two. And then, as I said before we got on the air, we also did a short story, 50-page short story that's the prequel to the series that
Mhm.
talks about how Sarah and Whiskey ended up getting together. So
Wow. Wow. Okay.
yeah,
That sounds
and
interesting.
I can show you a picture of the
Please.
cover because this is Whiskey.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's so adorable.
So
Look at that.
yeah.
Look at that. That's so
And
adorable.
we've been having a blast with it. The pseudonym that we use to write the series is Faith Walker.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's
Okay.
everywhere that books are sold around the world. You can find
Oh,
it. So,
so interesting. Oh, that is
yeah.
so interesting. I'm excited for it um, to come. Do you have an estimate when it's coming out? When it's getting done?
Well, Poodles and Poison, it will be out probably in August.
Okay.
And the Paws and Puzzles came out January 24th.
Okay.
So
All right.
it's out now. And the audiobook for Paws and Puzzles just released last week. So it's anywhere
Wow.
you listen to your audiobooks, you can
Okay.
find it.
Fantastic. Thank you
Yeah,
for letting us know. Of course, I invite
sure.
our audience and listeners. We love stories. I mean, Jill, we
Yeah.
love stories. That's literally the second name of the show, right? Stories.
Uh-huh.
And you are a veteran in stories, and I know you love stories just as much. Jill,
Yeah.
I want to start getting into the whole freelancing career, right?
Yeah.
Um, do any stories stand out for you? What are some common pitfalls that freelancers face when it comes to starting this career, and how do you help them overcome these challenges in order to build sustainable freelance careers?
So in the book, Creating a Freelance Career,
Hmm.
the one of my favorite stories that's in there, because there's 26 case studies of 25 different people in their
Wow.
businesses
Wow.
within the book. And literally those are told as stories in the first person from each person's voice.
Interesting.
But one of the stories in there is a guy named Matthew Linder Holmes, and he has a master's degree in guitar performance because I
Hmm.
used to teach at a conservatory of music, so that's how I know him.
Hmm.
And Matthew makes a comment in this his case study that
Hmm.
said that he used to be really terrified of networking because it sounded so big and scary to him. And he's more introverted. And so he didn't like the idea of like putting himself out there.
Yes,
But when
yes,
he realized that networking is literally talking to people
exactly.
and that he does that all the time, every day anyway,
That's so
but
funny.
he didn't attach this big word to it, right?
Yes. Hmm.
That freed him up to be more outgoing, to talk to
Exactly.
strangers, and to say things without feeling like it was something he had to aspire to or strive to. And
Interesting.
so those are the kinds of stories that are in the Creating the Freelance Career book,
Hmm.
things like that.
Hmm.
But we have people from all different industries, and the book sets up like, what do you need to know to start a career as a freelancer? What do you need to know legally, especially if you're in the United States? What do you
Hmm.
need to know about business structures and bank
Exactly.
accounts and all that kind of technical
Hmm.
detail? But then how do you go find clients, and how do you
Very important.
represent yourself with clients?
Hmm.
There's sample contracts. There's
Hmm.
also stories about creatives who have created, let's say, hair accessories or something, and they want to sell them to Nordstrom's or one
Wow.
of the big, huge department stores. And
Uh-huh.
like, how do you get in? What do you need to know going into this kind of an arrangement? And
Interesting.
what should the contract look like? And so and what are some of the pitfalls with that?
Hmm.
Um, and so there's a bunch of different, ways to talk about business in there and to be a freelancer and to be a consultant and a contractor. And then there's also chapter 6 is how to pitch a book proposal to a publisher. And it's how to write the proposal. It's how to write the query letters. There's samples of
Really?
all of it in the
Wow.
chapter. So
Wow.
we did cover that too, just in case. And
Interesting.
the book also covers marketing your business and when to know if you need to expand,
Wow.
and pretty much all the facets of owning your own company and being entrepreneurial.
That is very interesting. It's so jam packed. I mean,
Yeah.
I described it as a comprehensive guide, but it really is comprehensive. It's not an
Yeah.
exaggeration right there. I love it. First of all, you are dubbed, or you dub yourself, you are an entrepreneurial jail, right? Like
Yes, I do say that.
entrepreneurial jail, like
Yeah.
a jack of
Of
all
many
trades,
trades.
of many
Yeah.
trades. Yeah, but you are
Yeah.
this. So yeah, I love that, an entrepreneurial jail, because you've shown us that just you give us a little bit of a walkthrough, really, of what you're offering in this book and what you're offering with your consultancy, because it's not just about starting that freelance career, but the freelance career sounds very welcoming because you own your time, you get to talk to people, not necessarily just network with people, but you
Yeah.
need these skills. These are very important, getting clients is also very important, consistently finding that next freelance gig. And it's always, I to me, that was my experience in my freelance career. The struggle was always finding that next one. And you not only offer these steps, these comprehensive steps, but you also offer guidance outside of this, forming this career. And I think that's very, very cool how you put so much detail into that, just talking about it, for a few minutes. But Jill, talk to us a little bit more now about consulting, or the coaching side of things, of
Yeah.
what you do technically. What would be, this is interesting. Okay, if there was one key advice that you would tell any freelance entrepreneur who's just starting out, what would be that one advice? If you only had one advice to give, what would it be?
Say yes when it feels right to you, even if it seems like what you're being asked to do is crazy.
Interesting. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Of
So
course, say yes. Okay, say
when I
yes to
was,
opportunities. Talk to
yeah,
us a bit about
and when I was, and stay open to opportunities. When I was in my 20s, I did some really crazy freelance gigs. Like
that. Wow.
a judge who lost an election hired me to write a card with a dancing leprechaun on it and write all the text for it, thanking people who voted for her and reminding them that she was going to run again. And when
Oh
she first
wow.
presented itself, like, could you write text for a singing leprechaun? I was just like, what? but it was a really, really fun assignment, right?
Yeah. First
And
off,
so, yeah,
first off, that's
it's,
really hilarious. But it led you to opportunities, and you
yeah,
wouldn't have if you didn't if you didn't say yes to that, right?
yeah,
Um, what,
absolutely.
go ahead. When it comes to coaching and consultancy, what would be, some of the more common ones that you help people go through when it comes to overcoming that fear of saying yes to
So,
opportunities?
so a lot of the times, what I see with my clients, whether this is an entrepreneur who's building a business, who's not a freelancer, or who is a freelancer, a client who's a freelancer, or some of my clients who are artsy and, doing artistic things, or
Right.
the ones that are writing books. The thing I
Right.
see the most frequently is that they get in their own way and they don't even see it.
Wow. Interesting.
And so it's, we all come into the world, or once we get past childhood, we have our own limiting beliefs that we
Hmm.
may not even realize that are limiting for us, but it's stuff
Yes.
that's been ingrained into us about money,
Interesting.
about opportunities, about our own value and our own worth.
Wow.
And so sometimes it's a lot easier to work with a coach who can feel into your energy and can
Yeah.
feel those things in you and just very gently say, have you considered this instead of that? Because this is what I'm sensing. Like there's some fear around this, and
Yes.
you may not even realize you have fear around this.
Wow.
But the thing
Interesting.
is you're projecting that fear onto your potential clients, and that's what's keeping
Yes.
them from working with you.
That's so
Um,
interesting.
yeah, so it's a lot of that. I do like normal business coaching, but I also do a lot of intuitive and empathic coaching with my clients.
Yes, and that's a very crucial side of it, Jill, and I really agree with that. It's funny how you said normal business coaching, but
Yeah,
emphatic, deep coaching as well, emotional side of things. But it's
yeah,
hilarious, but it's true. I agree because these things is ingrained, right? This is who you are.
yeah,
It's programming. It's fears that we've learned as as children, and it's nice coming from you, someone who has put herself out there constantly and have learned to overcome these fears early on, and having to have someone on your side, someone like you on our side, on their side as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer, learning from someone who overcame these fears early on. I think it's a huge factor when it comes to not just freelancing career, but an entrepreneurial career
yeah,
in a general sense, because you need to overcome yourself first, conquer yourself first, before you can even start pitching yourself to clients, right? Pitching your
yeah.
service.
Well, you have to fully believe in yourself and your
Mhm.
value and your worth and what you're bringing to people. And
Especially.
and that's something that I, even over the last year or two, that I've gotten better at in myself. Right?
Yeah.
Because
Well, well,
I think that all of us on some level in some circumstances have imposter syndrome, right?
yes.
And,
Yes.
and an example that I'll use very recently for my own life, as you mentioned, that I made the list of 6 disruptors and innovators in Maxim magazine.
Mhm.
And I was really excited to be on the list. And then the
Mhm.
publicist called us maybe a month after we were told that we were going to do this and said,
Okay.
by the way, we're leading with Venus Williams. She's #1 on the list. And I was like, holy cow, how on earth did I end up on a list with Venus
Wow.
Williams?
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
But
Wow.
but then I realized that that's my imposter syndrome coming in.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
like, oh no, I
Yes.
deserve to be there just as much as she does, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Damn right,
but I
Jill.
think that's a common scenario for everyone
Hmm.
in various circumstances. We
Yeah.
find our circumstance where we're just kind of not feeling like we're quite as much as somebody else.
That's true. Especially highly achieved people. We see this, all the time. People who's done so much. And I was going to stop you right there, Jill, because you do deserve to be on that list.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, 18 books, and with the expensive experience that you've had, all this stuff that you're putting out there, especially the insight that you shared with us here today. I mean, I love stories, and you are again the storyteller yourself. And here today we are sharing not just your personal stories. I mean, not just your stories of your experiences from other people and overcoming these fears. Those are always meaningful stories to tell. It kind of ties back to that one example that you said that he was terrified of networking, but actually he talks to people a lot. It's we are holding ourselves back, and you are helping people overcome that personal obstacle for them, which I think is absolutely necessary in the world. We need more storytellers like you. We need more voices like you, leaders, consultants, and coaches like you, who help people overcome that fear. Jill, before I
Thank
start
you so
letting you
much.
go, yes, I mean it's lovely. It's been lovely, Jill. Before I start letting you go, I feel kind of sad letting you go now. But Jill, this is how I always end the show in such a way that I always ask the question, what does the future look like for Jill Ferguson? How do you see yourself in the consultancy business? How do you see yourself, as an author? Are there any other future aspirations in your, in your future, in your view, in your vision? You've had many roles, you've had many experiences since you were young, but your future is a blank page. How would
Yeah.
Jill Ferguson write her future?
More very exciting creative work with and collaborations with other people.
Hmm.
Uh, more books for sure.
Yes.
uh, uh, with more books with my name on it and more books with other people's names on them because I do ghostwrite and I've done about 3 dozen of those. And maybe even at some point I might like to host a television show or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Ah, I love that. I
Might be
love.
fun. I've never publicly stated that before. So Joshua,
Well,
you
we
dragged
need
it
to
out of
talk.
me.
We definitely need to talk about that because now, it's quite this. This might be the start. This might be the start of
It
something
might
that
be. Yeah.
you've been envisioning for a while. This could be it. Jill, thank you so much for coming on the show. Before I really truly let you go, where can we find you? Where are you most active in? Are you on Instagram? Are you on LinkedIn? Where can you find your books? Where where can we find everything that you've done, and how can we connect with you?
You can go to jillferguson.com.
Hmm.
You can go to creating the freelancecareer.com.
Hmm.
You can go to LinkedIn because I am very active on LinkedIn. I do
Awesome.
have other social media, but I'm not as active on them.
All right.
And my books are everywhere you buy books. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the normal places. And
Just search up Jill
even
Ferguson.
Walmart.com actually has
Really?
my books.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's so
And there's
cute.
bookstores in Taiwan and Hong Kong, and they're all in English, but, and we have a
Okay.
distributor in India for a lot of them too. So,
This is quite the odd question, a little left field. If there was one book I'm gonna pick up from many books that you've written, what would be
oh.
that one book you recommend? You're just the sole
For
author.
you personally or for
Yes, for
somebody
me,
else?
or
Oh,
for the audience, or for me, or whichever. What would be the one book you would recommend?
probably creating a freelance career if you're a business person. I
Right, as
think
a
even
business
if you
person,
think you know everything about business, you might still learn something from it.
of course. Interesting.
Yeah. And if you are listening to this and you've been recently laid off, Laura Brown and I wrote a book called Help My Company Swiped Left. that
Oh
has
yes,
very,
help my
yeah,
company swipe left. I should have mentioned that. That is
it,
what a
and it
title.
has really good information if you're in the job search market about how to optimize your LinkedIn profile and where to find work, and also how to help yourself heal from being let go from your job.
Okay,
So,
that is of
yeah.
course very again all that insight, Jill. Thank you so much for being on here in the show today and for sharing us all your stories and your insight. It's been a pleasure. You have been great. You've been adorable and sweet. I love the energy and thank you for coming on to the show today.
Thank you very much, Joshua. I've had a great time.
Fantastic to all our audience listeners out there. See you on the next one.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.